Good evening, AEGEAN 600 race fans. I'm Dobbs Davis from Seahorse Magazine, and I'm giving you the day two race analysis of this year's fifth edition of this great race around the AEGEAN, 605 miles. Lots of challenges, and we're going to talk about some of that faced the fleet in about the last 30 hours. What I have up here that you see on our YB tracker backdrop is where the fleet was about 24 hours ago, 6 hours after the start. As you might remember, they had a pretty fast, enjoyable start off of Cape Saunion down to their first turning mark of the course here at the island of Milos. Everything looked great until the wind started getting light. So let's scroll forward here in the positions, and I think you can see a bit what's happened. Everything kind of stopped. So the bulk of the fleet here, as the wind got light, started to slow down and slow down and slow down. The boats that are not necessarily a whole lot larger, but a little bit faster in the lighter air, also had a bit of a tough time punching through. What we see here is, let's see, that's about 1 o'clock in the morning this morning. And even they too stopped for a few hours and did a few circles looking for any kind of breeze. This is what it looked like at 3 o'clock this morning. And a couple of teams actually were able to punch through, and we're going to tell stories about them here in a moment. The leading multi-hull, the very large 86-foot Allegra, even they got kind of caught in a trap here under the lee of Milos. Now, I say lee because we kind of assuming the wind was out of the north, and really what was happening here is a big transition that I'll explain in a moment. So if you looked at Allegra, they really haven't moved in a few hours. They were just kind of doing circles. These guys up here hunting for any kind of breeze. You can see how far they've deviated away from the shortest distance to the next mark, which is shown in red, what we call the rum line. But again, just trying to keep any kind of speed at all. If you move the cursor over any of the icons for these boats, you can see these speeds that are pretty low, 2.6 knots, 3.3 knots, and so forth. Really light air conditions. Meanwhile, even those sort of up here I won't say enjoying great conditions. They're just faster boats in this light air. So their speeds are at 6 knots rather than 2 or 3 knots. And therefore, that's allowing them to extend their distance from the rest of the pack. This is what the image looked like just prior to dawn. And then as we look here, you can see the track's getting a little bit better organized, which means that there's some wind. And the teams are starting to organize themselves into some reliable tracks toward the next mark. So from Milos, they're going, that's about 50 miles, 55 miles over here. I'm circling with my cursor the island of Santorini. This is an iconic part of this race where you go through the volcanic old caldera here. The main bulk of the island is to the east, and then there's a couple of volcanic plugs, which are the geologic expression of an old volcano system here that had collapsed several thousand years ago. And it's pretty spectacular. And I'll tell you, just geographically, it's one of the most amazing parts of this race, and very distinctive of this race from others in the 600-mile race world. But anyway, so one thing we're going to look at is, why are these guys not sailing along here at Rumline? And the reason is the wind, which had been sort of northerly on this first leg of the race, had died out and shifted over to the west. So this was becoming quickly a downwind leg, and therefore we're not able to sail straight in a straight line toward Santorini. And as I'll show in a moment, when I put the wind on this backdrop. You'll see why. So, interestingly, leading the pack at this stage, and this was at 7 o'clock this morning, was the French Carquique 54, Daguet from France. They're ahead of the largest and presumably fastest boat in the fleet, which is George Procopio's Volvo 70 Aeolus. And again, this is all about light air fighting. A Volvo 70 has a lot of form stability and a lot of surface area, and in very light conditions, it frankly just won't be as fast through the water as some of these carbon race boats that are slightly smaller, but they got a little bit better ratios of sail area to wetted surface and so forth. In fact, what I found really amazing are this other French team up here in a Care 40. I mean, to me, they were the real winners last night because they were able to keep their boat moving through the super light stuff. They're at this stage in the race, I mean, even at 40 feet, I mean, they're a fraction of the size of these larger rivals, and they're right up there with them. So that shows you that fighting at night in light air is a really special challenge. It's common to almost every offshore race. I know we have a lot of great images and a lot of great stories from the last couple of years of massively windy conditions and great spray and tremendous progress. But in all honesty, a lot of offshore races are won and lost by the ability to navigate through conditions like this. Okay, let's keep going forward. And as you can see, fleet sagging well to the south of Rumline before jibing to come back in and get up here to the mark. So even the teams that were trailing and were late getting around the island of Milos, they too sagging off to the south. Nobody's going up to the north. So let's see why that is. I'm going to scroll forward here. You can see fleet progress, and now we're up to just about real time now, 2013 here in Eastern European time. This is where the fleet is now. And we have the windy overlay of wind direction and speed. Since this is video, you can see these very clever graphics showing the wind vectors and the color scheme. So at the bottom of this screen, blues represent very light wind, and as it goes into greens, it gets up toward 15 and 20 knots. Nobody wanted to go up here in the blues. Very light air. All the navigators on board, I'm sure, have access to the forecasting tools. They may or may not be the same as what we're looking at here, but surely they saw that it was favored to go south in the course rather than north, and certainly not sailing in that preferred side of the course or up toward Rumline. So, and then the other thing to note is what's going to happen here in the future. Now, the Volvo 70 Aeolus has retaken the outright lead amongst the monohulls. Daguet is not far behind, and they're going pretty fast. So now they're reaching. You can see the wind vectors are showing them reaching and broad reaching. Ideal point of sail for these boats. They're going, looks like Daguet at 9.4 knots at this sked, and Procopio's team is going 10.5 knots. Just a reminder, in my tutorial yesterday on how this works, the updates are done every 30 minutes. So it's not quite real time, but it's a pretty good indication. Looks like finally the multi-hull Allegra broke free. So they're joining the monohulls out here, and 7.8 knots. They're not lighting the world on fire, but as the breeze increases, of course, they'll speed up. And then leading in ORC scoring is Carbonita. This is a Neo 570, also another high-powered carbon boat. Their progress at this stage is 7.9 knots, according to that. I wanted to just give a little bit of a sailing lesson and show you why this tactic of sagging to the south of Rumline and staying in stronger breeze was important, not just for greater boat speed, but also reducing the distance to this mark, this objective where they were going to enter the caldera. And in so doing, what I've done is run a set of polars for that boat Carbonita. This is the Neo 570 that's now lying in third position amongst the monohulls. So, going quite fast. Now, what you're seeing here is a plot of curves starting they almost look like concentric circles. It's a little complex to explain, but basically this is a plot of wind angle and wind speed. The radial coordinates are boat speed, and the angular coordinates are wind angle. And this is expressed in true wind angle on the right, apparent wind angle on the left. True wind angle is sort of easier to follow along, so we'll look at that. I will zoom in a little bit. There you go. And we're going to look at this in a little detail. So each of these curves represents the performance of this boat in 6 knots of wind, 8 knots of wind, 10, 12, 14, 16, and so forth. And as you can see, as the wind speed increases, the position radially goes out away from the center and representing higher boat speeds. That all makes sense. The color coding, by the way, is how the velocity prediction program predicts the speed of the boats as a function of what sails they have up. So there's a code for that here at the bottom, where red is an asymmetric spinnaker, sailed for the deeper downwind angles. Yellow is something called a headsail set flying, so it's a very large headsail that could be flown from the bowsprit. Pink is a asymmetric spinnaker of smaller size that is also flown from the bowsprit. And then blue is sort of a normal jib or normal headsail that you would have on the headstay. Anyway, aside from all that, my point I wanted to make was to look at these. Look what happens to boats in downwind. In the very light air, this boat's optimal angle in 6 knots of wind is, what is that, about 140 degrees true wind angle, let's say. In 8 knots of wind, it's actually, interestingly, about the same, maybe even slightly less. But look what happens when the breeze increases to 10 knots. Then that ideal angle goes out to about 145 degrees. And then at 12 knots and 14 knots, it's out at 150 degrees. And what that means is that the distance on a downwind leg can be reduced because the boat is not only sailing faster, but at its ideal angles is also sailing deeper, meaning further away from further away from the wind, and therefore less distance is needed to get to the downwind objective. So this is what we call the optimal VMG, velocity made good. And you say, well, why does it go back to being at shallow angles at these much higher wind speeds? And the reason is the boat starts to take off and it starts to plane. This boat will, for sure, up in these higher wind ranges of 20 and 24 knots. So anyway, that's just a brief little sailing lesson for those that didn't already know it. And one that I think is really interesting about offshore racing. The teams need to know this stuff in order to optimize their position here strategically and tactically around this race course. It's not just point and shoot and put up the right sail and go fast. Now it looks like it might be that way for these teams tonight. This is about a 130-mile leg from Santorini down to Kassos. That's down here in the next leg of the course is over here in the Dodecanese. We're leaving the Cyclades and going to Dodecanese Islands. And if we look forward in time with the wind forecast, let's see, let's go to 7:30. This is tomorrow morning. And this wind is holding up tonight, if you believe this. So the boats will probably be down in here, but it looks pretty good for them. And if we go even further forward in time, like early tomorrow afternoon, starts to lighten up a little bit, maybe starts to go aft. So the slower boats that will be coming down on this leg will have broader angles, more or less the same wind speed. Again, it sort of depends on how much you believe the shade of green and blue here. And then let's go to approaching this time tomorrow. And look at that. It's actually, if you believe this literally, good strong breeze, broad reaching angles. So I'm predicting that for the next 24 hours, the boats will have a great leg down here to Cassos. The fastest of the boats will be making the turn here. Now, again, this is a little interesting compared to previous years where the Meltemi is usually shifted more to the northwest and usually much stronger. I mean, the last couple of years, this is the breeziest part of the Aegean is down here. It blows 25 to 30 knots and even more. I mean, you can get gale force winds down here at Cassos and Carpathos. And yet, if we believe this forecast, we're just not really going to see that here. At least, certainly not the fastest boats. It looks like they even may have a little bit of a lead to fight through in getting from Cassos. This channel is actually usually pretty windy, but then through the lee of Carpathos and then on their way over here to Rhodos. Now, Rhodos being a big island, you can see the trap that lies ahead there in that big lee. So that'll be, I'm sure, the subject of tomorrow's broadcast. I want to thank you all for joining us here at the AEGEAN 600, and thanks for tuning in. Go to our website for more information, and on behalf of the Hellenic Offshore Racing Club, I'm Dobbs Davis.